Well, NATO leaders are meeting during the 75th anniversary of the military alliance. With more on what they'll be discussing and Canada's particular issues, let's bring in CTV's Colton Prale. Colton, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So what are the big issues NATO will be dealing with this time around?
Yeah, top of mind, of course, is going to be Ukraine and support for them financially as that war continues with Russia. But there are also a lot of questions about the alliance itself, specifically on its future and its ability to be military ready, given the concerns that we've seen from some of the larger member states. Of course, in the U.S., there are big questions around the election and what could a potential Trump presidency mean for NATO. He has previously talked about halting aid to Ukraine, about even pulling out of the alliance itself. How would they go forward? On top of that, recently, in light of that U.S. instability, you've had France positioning itself as a European leader of this group, as someone who can be taking charge and seen to be leading the way. However, the power that Emmanuel Macron has in his own country vastly diminished after this weekend's election. You just saw a huge uproar on the far right and the far left, getting immense amounts of power that they didn't have before. Both of those groups who have pushed back against France's actions and their support for Ukraine and their commitment to NATO as well, the far right specifically calling to leave that group. And so those are two rather large member states who are suddenly in a much more tumultuous situation with their relationship with NATO. You also have countries like Turkey and Hungary involved as well, who are very cozy with Russia and who aren't as committed to helping out Ukraine. So the future of this alliance, ensuring that its member states are paying the amount they ought to be paying and meeting that 2% target, all on the table here as the focus is around Ukraine and around being able to continue to support Ukraine, even if the presidential election in November dramatically changes the landscape of the inner workings of NATO.
And Colton, you just mentioned that 2% target for NATO defense spending by NATO member countries. Canada's not there yet. We know that's an issue they're going to be facing. What's coming out of that? What's the Prime Minister either A, experienced or B, in for at this meeting?
Yeah, the big concern is that Canada could be pushed to the periphery here. There has been pretty open frustration with the fact that our country has not hit that 2% target. This is something that we've promised to do since 2014. However, this year we saw the unveil of a new military spending plan taking us all the way into 2030. And in that plan, we still don't hit the 2% target. In fact, there was a parliamentary budget officer report that came out yesterday that said actually Canada is going to be even lower than we predict in 2030. Canada is right now at about 1.37% of the GDP on military spending. They say it's going to get up to 1.76 by 2030, but the PBO estimates actually it'll only be about 1.42. Now, they do use a bit of a different formula to get there, and they also assume that, like in years past, Canada's not going to spend as much as they promise, but still, that's a far cry in either scenario from that 2% target, and there is concern that as this goes on, as it stretches on, don't forget a lot of that spending is backloaded closer to the 2030 timeframe, that our allies will grow impatient, that they will get frustrated with the lack of action from government and from Canadian leaders when it comes to this issue, and that as that frustration grows, Canada's place in NATO could be shifted into a much more lower periphery, someone who's on the outside looking in for a number of the discussions that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, CTV's Colton Prale joining us live this morning. Thank you for that.